Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. In just a moment, you will hear from our moderator, Meadow CEO David Hua, as well as a handful of new and improved Meadow integration partners, Weedmaps, AlpineIQ, and SparkPlug. Today's topic is marketing for the high holiday. And in a moment, our panelists will share some best practices on how to create 420 marketing plans that will help you drive omni-channel sales. So before we get into it, for those of you who don't know us, since 2014, Meadow has built a full suite of connected software tools, point of sale, delivery, e-commerce, a robust customer database, plus text marketing, loyalty programs, and discounts. We offer superior workflows for retail operators, and our system is simple, easy to use, and easy to train both front and back of house employees. And best of all, it saves an estimated 20% in labor costs by reducing tedious manual labor. So if you're paying to use multiple systems with clunky workflows and you have inventory or sales data that you can't fully trust, we would love to help you upgrade to Meadow's efficient all-in-one system. And most importantly, dispensary teams using our system really love it. We offer superior customer service and easy to use tools and robust sales and customer data that you can turn into marketing campaigns. So there is a reason that we're the #1 cannabis retail POS software on G2, and we really pride ourselves on creating happy partners and offering ongoing support and educational resources like today's workshop, because we really want to see you thrive. So shout out to all of the Meadow partners in the room today. Our system has been based on real world feedback from folks like you, and we love to find ways to help dispensaries sell more cannabis with less work. Our system is now available in California, Michigan, and soon Massachusetts and New Jersey. Meadow was the first cannabis POS to integrate with the Weedmaps live menu integration back in 2019. Weedmaps helps businesses bring marketing, sales, and operations under one roof to grow faster, reach active customers, and deliver seamless digital to in-store experiences, turning casual browsers into loyal customers. And with our new deeper integration that we're just releasing, orders placed on Weedmaps are now automatically tracked, managed, and fulfilled within Meadow's point of sale with no manual entry required. This is going to save retailers huge amounts of valuable time, help them avoid errors, and streamline the fulfillment process with catalogs, inventory, taxes, and promotional data seamlessly tracked, automatically updated in one place. So we're so excited to be releasing this deeper integration with Weedmaps, which you will hear more about shortly. SparkPlug is one of the newest Meadow integrations, and this is the first time we're giving a sneak peek of it anywhere. SparkPlug lets dispensaries gamify sales incentives to their in-store teams. And with the new Meadow integration, dispensary teams can run contests and commissions and set goals to motivate their teams to increase sales and customer satisfaction. You can also tap into your vendors' marketing budgets to fully fund these incentives, helping you to retain top talent while selling more products. It's a win for your team, your vendors, and your customers, and we know this is going to be a game changer for a lot of you. Last but definitely not least, we're also excited to give a preview of our brand new integration with AlpineIQ. AlpineIQ solves a number of issues for cannabis retailers that often face marketing dilemmas on traditional platforms. You can see who's buying what and when, run totally compliant marketing campaigns across email, text, browser notifications, or push notifications, and build loyal customer bases using reward systems, and also analyze the efficacy of different marketing campaigns. So some of the prime benefits of the new Meadow and AlpineIQ integration are that you can grow your loyalty enrollment, increase average ticket size, increase customer purchase frequency, and generate more revenue from your best customers. And finally, before we get into today's webinar, I just wanted to give a very sneak peek of our next exciting integration. Coming soon, we are thrilled to announce Meadow integrated payments with the cheapest rate for compliant debit processing on the market. We're offering early access to integrated debit payments for today's webinar participants. So send us a chat here or in Meadow admin, or you can email support@getmeadow.com and we will get you started. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're thrilled to have representatives from Weedmaps, AlpineIQ, and SparkPlug here today, talking about their services and how dispensaries can use some of these tools to streamline sales and engage customers as we get closer to 420. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat below and we'll take them as we go. And I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Meadow CEO David Hua. Hua, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Aria. Welcome, everybody. 'Tis the season. We're getting really excited for 420, and we love getting ahead of the game before it gets a little crazy. And I really want to say thank you to SparkPlug, Weedmaps, and AlpineIQ for joining. We have 3 great panelists, and we're going to dive into what makes their companies uniquely special, while also tackling tips and tricks and things that we're seeing to help you have the best week ever. Joining us, we have the CEO and co-founder of SparkPlug, Andrew Duffy. We have Alex Gotti from Weedmaps, who runs the product marketing. And we have a co-founder, CRO, West from AlpineIQ. So quickly, I'm just going to go through everybody and give it a little intro. Tell us a little bit about what you do, how things are going in your world, with respect to your product, and we'll go from there.
Sounds like a plan. I'll kick it off. My name is Andrew. Thanks, Hua and Aria, for having me on the webinar today. Great to see everybody. I mentioned co-founder over here at SparkPlug. Our whole goal is to help you turn your dispensary team into SEAL Team 6, doing exactly what you want, doing it in the most effective way possible by rewarding them so that their goals are aligned with yours. We are really excited for the 420 season as well. It is a great opportunity to take some new customers, some existing customers, and really expose them to how impactful that in-store experience can be, and how really great employees that are really well trained and really well incentivized can give them a really unique experience that'll keep them coming back. So 420 is a great opportunity, and we're stoked to be integrated with Meadow to support it.
All right. Wes here, co-founder of AlpineIQ. We originally started off as a business just because we saw retailers having a really hard time managing all of the data coming in from point of sale, from e-commerce, from website activity. So that was kind of where we began. But I think what we really want to do is try to create or bridge that gap between customer education and need and the product that's best going to serve that need. And, retailers really only have 7 to 11 minutes on average in store to be able to understand their customer and serve that need. And so we try to take the whole digital experience, take all that data, clean it, and allow retailers to then use it in a way that creates a unique digital experience for that customer and helps them be guided from maybe having no education whatsoever to finding that right product and ultimately having loyalty to the retailer who helped create that experience for them.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. My name is Alex, and I'm the Group Product Marketing Manager at Weedmaps. I lead a team of killer product marketing experts who are passionate about delivering products and marketing strategies that cultivate a community around what matters most, which is the people. For those of you who are not familiar with Weedmaps, Weedmaps is the marketplace where cannabis commerce happens. We're on a mission to connect retailers and brands with consumers at every stage of the cannabis journey. And we do this through integrated marketing, e-commerce, and back-end operation solutions that are just in one place, make it easy, streamline it. So really excited to be here and talk about 420 and what that means for folks going into the holiday season.
Thanks. And, I also want to highlight everyone's background here. I think one thing I love about cannabis is it brings people from all backgrounds. And, just to highlight who we have on the panel and the experience, we have Andrew, who's run a supply chain for whole leaf tea and did that in his previous life. He also worked at Bridgewater, where you essentially is one of the largest and most successful hedge funds in the world. You have Alex, who's you have this whole Hanzo sword under your bed with all the ads that you've done, all the ad experience, all in cannabis, we can't do a lot of it, but I'm sure what we can do. And you have West, who essentially was at Tilray, did a bunch of operator work there and used all the acumen that he learned there to start Alpine. So I think I just want to highlight that experience, that we're coming at this not just from where we are today, but where we've come from, and to provide that experience to you and knowledge. So, the first thing we're going to go in just to set the stage. So, what are you seeing from your positions in the industry? Let's talk about like marketing budgets, the economic landscape of cannabis, and the macro call it headwinds that we're experiencing. I just love your perspective on what you're seeing, and so we can be on the same page here.
Yeah, happy to jump in. What we're seeing from our perspective is a shift towards efficiency in marketing and really looking to find what channels and what expenditure strategies drive the best outcome for the fewest dollars put in, which sounds simple, but as anyone on the call can attest it. Having said that, a lot of the brands that we work with are looking to really narrow in on what are those few channels that really work and focus in on making that the way that they drive, better outcomes for themselves and for their dispensary partners. And we're seeing the dispensaries that have the most success are the ones that are sort of meeting those brands in the middle and saying, here's how we're going to enable you to drive more effective campaigns so that we can work together to have success as a team, rather than just expecting, everybody to work individually and hope that things go well. So I think with collaboration, there's the opportunity to be as efficient as possible and make the season a really great one, despite some changes to budgets, some of those market headwinds, and maybe some reductions in overall expenditure.
Just building off of that, what we're seeing is a lot of folks, there's just a level of sophistication that's coming in when it comes to how I look at my budget, right? My marketing budget, what channels are working, what's not, how do I get the highest ROI and ROAS, but also leveraging both offline and online channels. So an attribution problem that we see, even outside of the cannabis industry is still very real in this industry as well. So I think folks are just fine tuning how they approach where to allocate budget to just marry the top of funnel brand awareness campaigns with down funnel conversions, which ultimately to sales. So that's what we're seeing, and just folks are trying to get a bit more educated and smarter on where they're spending their time and resources.
Yeah, I think one of the comments that I want to make that I think nobody else has touched on yet is trying to avoid the race to the bottom. The spigot has been on for, they'll call it 2018 through 2021 even. And so I think in mature markets, we saw some right sizing coming, spending shrinking a bit from, those high COVID spending times. And there are businesses who may not have a path to profitability or maybe struggling with that today. And if that's the case, it's really difficult to make the solution discounting down your product and taking it to the floor. And it's hard to do that, or hard to resist that temptation when you see competitors all around you doing it. And so one of the things that we, have seen a lot more of is how do we create marketing campaigns and efficiencies around creating campaigns that drive additional revenue by targeting the right people at the right time with product information that pulls them in to make a sale, instead of using it as a means of delivering, hey, we just want to give you a discount or something like that. I would say we have seen more direct goals of maximizing that ROI, trying to carve out, hey, what differentiates the product that we have in our store versus maybe competitors, and trying to use that as a way of getting more of those premium sales out the door and maximizing that ROI.
So we're hearing efficiency, we're hearing sophistication and budgets and how to deploy them, and we're hearing not to go to the race to the bottom, and making sure you're really dialing in what people are buying at a price point that I guess doesn't make you lose money. Can we sort of paint that picture on top of the economic landscape as well, right? Wes, you kind of touched on it, like we had 2018, 19, we had a fairly frothy environment at that time. And so what are we looking at now?
I mean, certainly we've seen a little bit of shrinking, right? There was definitely, I think, the Colorado market, my home market, we saw that last year shrink up a bit from the 2019, 2020 days, where I think that all that stimulus definitely put more money in consumers' pockets. And that in turn did it lead to increased sales, which is amazing. I think being able to better identify the products that people really care about matters most now, because you can save money by not having inventory that goes bad because it's the wrong inventory. You can save money by being able to use campaigns that go specifically to the customers that are interested in the products that you're actually advertising. And both of those cut unneeded spend and who you're sending money or how much money you're spending on campaigns, and also how much those campaigns have. Both of those are really powerful ways to kind of control that these days and or combat that shrinking wallet.
It makes sense. I mean, like in Alex, your previous roles, you ran advertising platforms and you were trying to get in front of the customer in a lot of ways. And like you didn't know the demographic information to some extent. Now we actually have full visibility, especially with the point of sale. We know who, when, what, where, everything, buying history, buying patterns. And that actually is probably like the holy grail in figuring out how to deploy, the sophistication that, Wes is talking about, right? I think like, can you speak to sort of, with that and this landscape, how do people deploy these budgets effectively and with that sophistication that you're talking about?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, the reality is, while we're trying to avoid a race to the bottom, we also know, like on Weedmaps, 80% of our consumers use price as a gauge, right, in their purchase decision. And 40% of those consumers are comparing multiple retailers before making a decision. So I think there's a way to strike a balance between running broad discounts and deals versus being more targeted with what are your basket anchors and then building your pricing strategy around that. So looking at trending products, categories, brands. And then for, on Weedmaps, we tend to see 20 to 30% is our highest deal claim rate from consumers. So deals with 20 to 30% off, but really getting targeted on what those products are and what you're advertising and being very specific in your creative on that deal is super important in not only capturing attention, but driving folks through your doors.
No, it makes a lot of sense. One thing I like about SparkPlug and what Andrew's doing is while people are in the store and they may come in for that discount, you have an opportunity of building the basket and having better engagements with the customer. I mean, Andrew, I guess, can you speak to sort of that experience and, coupled with this landscape and the I guess, consultative nature of some of these engagements to get to those higher basket sizes?
Absolutely. The moment when the customer is highest intent to purchase and most willing to try a new product is when they're standing right in front of the bud tender at the counter. So if you can leverage that opportunity to expose them to a new product and have your employees flexibly and consultatively selling them on products that might be a fit with other products that they're trying or might be a fit for the use case that they're describing, that can not only expand your opportunity in the moment to increase that basket size at comparatively lower cost, but it can also increase the likelihood that that customer will be trying newer and more products in your dispensary into the future. So you can kind of affect the trajectory of their buying behavior by starting to train them as a customer that's doing discovery in the store by making sure that your employees are motivated to do that and thinking about doing that. And I think what's nice about that opportunity when leveraged in conjunction with other marketing strategies from the out of store to the after purchase is that it gives you kind of multiple swings at the pitch. You don't necessarily have to hit them with exactly the right targeted campaign at every step of the way. You just have to make sure that your combined marketing strategy is going to make sure that you are exposing them to the opportunity to spend more and get a better experience in your store or when they come into the store with intent to purchase. So when you're running into an environment where maybe your marketing budget is a little bit lower right now because you're seeing lower overall total spend, then if you can increase your order averages by 10% by simply adding on average one upsold product into the basket, then that'll get you a lot more juice than trying to get new customers into the door, which can be quite an expensive prospect and can make it more and more difficult for you to continue expanding your sales if you're not necessarily taking advantage of the opportunities you have already in the store. So I think it's really a continuum across everything that all the panelists are talking about right now, from the out of store and driving them into your sales environment to maximizing your influence over that purchase in the sales environment, to then leveraging the information you get about that customer to continue driving their purchasing behavior in the future. So ideally, you're leveraging all three of these strategies to make all of them, as efficient as possible.
Yeah, I think there's, it's a really good perspective and sort of the strategy and the reasoning behind it. I guess moving on to the next piece, which is really around like, all right, I'm a dispensary, I'm a brand, I have a marketing budget. How do I look at creating this go around? How do I look at some of the best practices I should be thinking about? Even if you have numbers on like, what is good ROI? What's a good, cost of acquisition? What's a good basket size? You mentioned a 10% increase. You mentioned your 20 to 30% discount item to get people in. How should people be thinking about some of these budgets, their strategies, and their marketing plan across the spectrum of like customers, new ones, loyal ones that may haven't been in the store in a while, or maybe even just like the tourists that are coming through because it's just, the holiday and what we're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, one of the unique things that we do around kind of optimizing that spend and how to allocate that budget the right way is to try to understand how the customer wants to be spoken to and measure that against, well, what is the best performing channel to speak to this customer? So AlpineIQ supporting MS, MMS, native push notifications, browser push notifications, direct mail in the US. We can send campaigns across all of those channels and actually measure the efficacy on the in-store transaction, and then look at patterns with customer behavior and say, John Doe prefers an email in the afternoon versus, Susan B, who prefers a text message in the morning. And we can actually measure the efficacy of campaigns and look at those behaviors and then adjust the marketing spend as a result. And I mean, text messaging has been around for a long time in the cannabis space. I think everybody here knows that. But I mean, email is a very affordable channel to send great communication on. So that's something that I think we've seen a massive increase in as budgets are being allocated and used more efficiently. I think people are using email more than they used to in the past.
I think a key factor there is that you should, as a dispensary, be leveraging your service providers and getting as much information and value from them as you can. AlpineIQ has run lots of campaigns. Weedmaps has run lots of campaigns. SparkPlug, we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of incentive campaigns. We have tons of templates built out. We have tons of benchmarks around what your ROI should theoretically look like on a given campaign. And that can depend on what type of dispensary you are, what the typical margin of your products are, what degree of volume you're typically seeing come through the store, how that changes over time. All these things can be very variable depending on your particular business. So work with your service providers and say, hey, this is what we need from you. Can you help share some information with us? Can you help drive us to a successful outcome? Because, ideally operators like all of us have that information at our fingertips and can be really supportive and, success-oriented partners to you to say, look, based on your exact needs, this is what we think would be a good strategy.
On the Weedmap side, in general, sort of best practices that we always share are making sure that your top of funnel marketing efforts are tied to down funnel actions. So in this context, right, getting ready for 420, menu accuracy, right, making sure that you have the right inventory. So folks who are coming in, who are searching, who are comparing retailers, you have ease of mind knowing that that menu is accurate, but then also making it easy to order from you. Right online, right at the point of purchase. So making sure that online ordering, you have efficient fulfillment, and then really connecting that to the in-store or offline experience, I think is really making sure that all of those systems are connected, data flows are consistent, so you can actually see what's attracting your customers, and then being able to leverage a SparkPlug or an AlpineIQ to then keep them coming back.
Yeah, the thing I'd throw in there is local really wins here. I think there's a fair amount of work that you can do around your neighborhood or just in your area. I mean, one of the things, I live in San Francisco, and we saw a campaign where the dispensary partnered with a local pizza chain, a pizza shop, as well as a local artist, and created this pizza that had a joint that came with it. And it was like very much branded toward that experience. So people came in, they said, I bought the pizza, here's your free pre-roll. And it connected this whole story between, your shop and the rest of the community. Whether it's your local hotel or a bagel shop, the week of they show you a receipt from the bagel shop, you get 10% off. That type of stuff where they'll let you put a sign up or of your specials or something like that can go a really long way. And a lot of that is just, I call it sweat marketing, where you just go around and go talk to everybody and see what's going on, widen the funnel at that moment. With the spend and the down funnel conversion, how does that relate to attribution, or how does that relate to that you spent it on this and how you break it up, as well as who's fulfilling that? The bud tender is there that's fulfilling the order and getting that. How do you figure that out in terms of post-mortem, and now you've looked at everything and here's what we got, and so they can take that data and move it forward on the next one, or analyze it from before and use it for this one?
Yeah. When we look at attribution in our system and conversion attribution, we look at kind of two measures. There's last touch attribution, and then there's control uplift. And with last touch attribution, we try to give as much control over how that is tallied to the retailer. So we actually give them the freedom to be able to say, okay, if I send a campaign that has a text and an email that go out at different times, I want to be able to draw a line and say, well, if they clicked on a link after they opened the text, we want to attribute the revenue to the email, so we can better understand how the campaign worked overall. So we can actually set behaviors, whether it's an opened message, looking and actually clicking a link, or even visiting a web page. All of that can be factored into, okay, this customer did or did not actually be moved by our experience that we delivered digitally.
Similarly with Weedmaps, what we can do is we essentially have different ad placements. So we can look at, views, clicks, claims, and whether it's an in-store. In this case, I'm talking about deals. If it's an in-store redemption, you can actually see if attribute that offline conversion. Online, obviously a little bit easier, right? You can actually see which deals or promo codes were claimed and then applied at checkout. So you can fine tune based on, and we work with our clients on this. We will essentially run A/B testing campaigns. So looking at, okay, when you ran 20% off heavy hitter pre-rolls, what was the return on that versus when you did buy one, get one for a penny, right? Like, what is the conversion, and comparing those two campaigns, and then looking at how did we promote that. So in Weedmaps, right, we have dedicated marketing campaigns for each of our clients. So looking at what that funnel looks like, and then the actual conversion, and fine tuning and optimizing based on what we're seeing our consumers take action on.
Yeah, I think just my philosophy around marketing strategy and marketing attribution is all about iterative building of campaigns on top of knowledge that you've aggregated with individual tests. So I think just, circling back to that A/B testing concept, it is always an exercise in a little bit of that sort of like statistical magic that you never really know exactly what's happening or what's being attributed to what when you're running multiple campaigns overlapping at a given time. So building a really robust and disciplined marketing strategy where you can be super confident that you're not overspending on running tons of campaigns simultaneously across a bunch of different channels without clarity around what's actually driving the outcomes for you, comes with the necessity of starting small, identifying what you think your key impact vectors are. Maybe you think that's in-store incentives. Maybe you think that's text loyalty. Maybe you think that's consumer-facing advertisement. Whatever it is that you think is going to be your key expenditure that drives the majority of your value, test that first, identify what's working for you, and then build campaigns on top of that to see what you can then get for that 1 + 1 = 3. So it's always a question of time. It's something that takes time and takes a really strategic and disciplined approach to build, because no matter how much data you have and how many benchmarks you've created, if you're not actively and effectively testing all of these strategies, then you could find yourself in a position where you're spending a lot on a lot of different things and you don't really know what's driving the value for you, which is I think why we have found ourselves as an industry generally pretty deep in that race to the bottom with respect to pricing promotions, because people feel very confident that pricing promotions are the things that are driving their volume, and that's because they are, but in reality, they could probably pull back from those pricing promotions and use some higher ROI expenditure channels. We've seen people trade off pricing promotions for incentive campaigns and spend a fifth as much and drive about the same outcome, from an actual sales lift perspective, and thus drive a significantly higher margin lift. So I think you can do that with a lot of different strategies in your marketing if you kind of start from zero and think about building it from the ground up.
Yeah, one of my favorite channels that I see with Meadow, we have this ability of check-in. You can see where the person was referred from and whatnot. But really, like after the purchase, one thing that they can do that we see it helps the most in terms of like rankability is get a Google Places review, right? Like, hey, you take this receipt or you show me if you got a review, I will give you a 10%, 20% off. And if you start implementing that today, by the time 420 comes around and you have an extra 40, 50 reviews, when people search dispensary near me, you will rank up. It's not if you're going to rank up for some sort of, vape pen brand or some edible within that short amount of time. But I guarantee you, if you're able to drive that type of engagement on something that you're already doing, where you just kind of layer in an extra step on the SOP, then you get that step curve with that type of attribution on something that is pretty not as disruptive to your business, and you get ready for 420.
Yeah, 420 starts now.
Yeah.
Cool. I heard Google, but I think you actually said Weedmaps, right? Weedmaps reviews.
Either way, all of it. Like it has like Weedmaps or Google or Yelp, where that social proof is where you rank up pretty high. I think that's what you're looking for. And whether you're getting that type of feedback, that's what I think customers are seeing. Customers are so smart now. Like they just see where to buy, what's going on, but they also look at those indicators like social proof, or, all right, go to Weedmaps. Let's check out this listing. Does it have a review? Does it have, like you said, full menu accuracy? Does it have all these things you're talking about? I want to move on to the loyal customers, right? We have such importance on new customers, but loyal ones are the ones that really drive your business. I'd love for you guys to talk about how do you create true loyal customers? How do you support the brands that are trying to connect to those customers and educating them so that you get the repeats that are coming back?
Yeah, for us, I mean, this is everything, right? It's making sure that when people come into your store, they feel understood and like this is their place. I think points and redemption, that discounting model of giving a carrot to the customer in exchange for their information is the ground level, right? That's loyalty 101. I think experiential loyalty is really where you start to have people become cemented into a program that they really never want to leave. And so that means having a customized browsing experience online. That means having a unique marketing experience out of the store. And experiential loyalty can look like a lot of things. In markets where it's allowed, it might be loyalty lotteries, where occasionally people who meet certain spending parameters would be eligible for basically a random drawing to have a great prize. You can have prize wheels. That's something that we're developing and testing right now. And then the ability to do refer a friend programs, talking about that social check there, having word of mouth spread, turning your customers into essentially paid influencers to proselytize the brand, super important there. So there's a number of levers that you can pull to create that true loyalty. And I think in markets where you can take people on a small cultivation tour, that's something that you do for a customer and people literally will never buy anywhere else. And so looking for those opportunities, those creative ideas to think outside the box, to create something that goes far beyond setting up points and discounts is really where you start to get that stickiness. That's kind of how we view it.
Yeah, I'm definitely aligned that experience is the key. Our focus obviously is much more oriented around what's that in-store experience like. and how is that irreplaceable relative to another dispensary that they might go to. Ultimately, a customer who's coming in and buying the exact same product mix of relatively popular brands over and over from your dispensary might seem like a loyal customer, but in reality, they're getting something from you that is theoretically quite replicable anywhere else. They could go to another dispensary, get that exact same mix of products. So they want to come into that store and feel like they are not only having a human experience that is irreplicable for them, something where they're connecting meaningfully with an employee in the store who's motivated and engaged, but they also want to feel like they're learning and gaining something with each of their new visits. They're trying a new product. They're learning more about the different types of products and differentiation between products within the methods of administration that they really like. And that's why, our focus is so heavily oriented around creating that in-store experience that, they will always want to come back to and engage with, which I think can be a really powerful way to marry that desire to increase their purchasing and increase order averages while also making them feel that this is an environment where they're going to be continually learning and getting closer with, consumption as a part of their life as they start to differentiate and try new and different products.
I think for us, it's really about ensuring that you're creating a consistent, easy online to offline experience. So whether you're placing orders online, whether you're placing it in store at kiosk, it's reliable and consistent. Because if you serve that up, if you're delivering great customer experiences at the point of sale, I want to come back. I want to start. That's where you're really starting to build that brand loyalty and affinity.
Yeah, my favorite hack there is what's interesting is the point of sale shows you the customer name, who they are. And literally, if you just take 10 seconds before that interaction, they come up and you're looking, you can see where they came from. If it was a Weedmaps order, oh, glad you found us on Weedmaps. By the way, if you review us, blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, I saw that you came in through an email and you purchased this before. Here you go. Thanks, West. Just saying their name 3 times in that interaction increases their loyalty by like 2-fold, which is the craziest thing. It's just people love to know that you call them by their name and you have that information. And if you also have their purchase history and what member groups are part of and all that stuff, it really dials it in that they're like, oh, this is my shop. This is where I go to.
If I took my mom to my shop and had her sign up for one of our programs, I wouldn't want her to, randomly receive tons of ads about dabs and concentrates because my mom nowhere near those at all. But being able to provide something like CBN where that's a proven sleep aid and won't give necessarily any of the effects that a dab would is probably more in line with the type of messaging that I think she would need. And so that's the goal, is to make sure that experience stops happening.
I think what we touched on too was the efficiency, and what Alex pointed to was the consistency of the offline online. One of the things I love about the orders integration, the API integrations we all have now, is we're streamlining a lot of that workflow. And so, we're talking about tight labor market, or we're talking about like a lot of churn, depending on churn meaning employees at these shops, mainly because, they're probably doing more with less now. How do we talk about, doing more with less and the labor and trying to figure out efficiencies? What are some best practices and ways for dispensaries to really set their businesses apart from the competition, but also from themselves and trying to eke out more efficiency? And maybe Alex, you take this one first, and we can spread it around.
Yeah, playing back to what I just mentioned is consistent online to offline order experiences, especially around 420, right? You're expecting a huge volume. And we've actually seen volume increase the weeks leading up to 420 in addition to 420. So having that information, whether it's coming from Weedmaps, Leafly, or it's coming from, right? You have to, in order to fulfill those orders and ensure that there's accuracy, right? You need an efficient way to get the order, make sure it's in your POS without having to do manual work to take orders from the multiple channels that you're running on, inputting it manually, right? There's human error, there's inefficiencies just with having 3 different screens and then having to put it into your POS. So we're excited about the Meadow order integration because that's taking the order information straight from Weedmaps, putting it right there into your POS so that you can your team can start fulfilling orders faster. And it's an efficient way to get through that large volume influx that you're going to see leading up to and on the day of 420.
I love that you brought up volume leading up to 420, because one of my favorite trends is 420's Eve that's happening, and running specials or running things before the day before so people can go enjoy their 420, or even the week before, is definitely kind of in line where I think spreading it out and making it easier for everybody so you don't have such a crush of a day as well.
The planners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that just to kind of circle back a little bit to that question regarding, employees and maintaining that really effective workforce in a tight labor environment and making sure that they don't get burnt out in a really high traffic month when lots of people are coming in who might be new consumers or who might be heavy consumers. They're getting a lot of variability and a lot of, sort of new traffic. It's all about motivating employees by aligning their goals with the goals of the business. There's a very different type of employee, which is the one that's just clocking in and clocking out. They're getting paid an hourly wage. It's a little bit less than they want. And maybe they could be making more going to do Uber or going to do DoorDash. But look, dispensaries are cash-strapped, margin-conscious businesses. 280E is not an easy system to exist under. So paying employees more on an hourly basis may not be an option that a dispensary has. And that's the thing that most employees respond to. So you have to be really creative and say, look, how are we going to align the goals of these employees with the goals of the business so that they want to work harder for the business so that they're getting rewarded as well? That's what sales incentives, commissions, gamification is all about. And, that's our whole mission is trying to make employees feel like they are, part owners in the business so that they will work just as hard as, the owners and operators of those businesses do. I think the absolute best way to make sure that you can retain great employees is to get your brands to help you out, because you are the biggest point of distribution for every brand that you work with, and they need you to be successful as a business to be successful as a brand. So they also need your employees to be successful. And if you can get your brands to help run campaigns, run incentives, help supplement your employees' wages, with either a manual campaign that you're running just by working together with those brands or using a tool like SparkPlug, then you'll find yourself with the best possible team that's motivated, that's not getting burnt out, and which is ultimately, not costing you more because you're working with your brands to help defray that cost. I don't think there's anything more important than having that really great, consistent dispensary team, because that is what really defines the experience of your store for every customer that walks in.
Yeah, and one thing I love to do, or I've seen, is really rewarding people after the holiday to take time off. The week after is a bit slow. That's a good chance to go enjoy. It's like working on Christmas, and especially for bud tenders and people in the industry, that's a great holiday, and people want to enjoy it or find a way to enjoy it. I've also seen some dispensaries do like a pre-party where they say, okay, we know 420 is coming. This is like appreciation for the staff. Let's, buy lunch and talk about what's going on and get ready, show some appreciation, show some love, because there's so much on the line for everybody there, and they're on the front lines doing it on a day-to-day. Let's speak about marketing mistakes. What are some red flags or areas to avoid in their planning and what you've seen in that go-to-market or in the execution?
You mean aside from someone trying to give my mom dabs? Is that?
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah, that's the most crystallizing, I think, analogy that I can make for the type of negative experiences that people can have. How many times have we all heard stories of people who didn't consume cannabis for a very long time and then came in and bought edibles and had an awful, awful experience? I think maybe that's because they didn't hear that they needed to take 2.5 milligrams instead of 5 or 10. And it's the bud tender maybe missed that or whatever. It's how can we use data? How can we try to make sure that experience never happens? That could take someone who tries cannabis for the first time in 20 years and decides that's not for me, never again, to someone who could potentially find tons of benefits from the plant. Part of that is understanding your customer base in general. When I say 420 starts now, you can learn a lot about what you need to do to prepare from a stocking perspective, from a marketing perspective, by looking at who your top 20% spenders were over the day of 420 last year and what they were buying, and understanding the demographic, understanding what campaigns were directed at them before, and using that to inform next year. Like, the data should inform your marketing, the marketing should inform your data, and it should inform every other aspect of the business, how you train employees. To Andrew's point, I remember one of the best feelings I ever had as a consumer shopping in a store was when I went, and this is actually relatively young in my cannabis career, go to the store and buy an ounce, and the bud tender looks at me and he goes, "Oh, so you heard about this too." And it made me feel like I was in on their secret. And, to me, those types of experiences are ones that I think solidify that loyalty, solidify the brand image in the customer's mind, makes them feel understood. So yeah, avoid sending dabs to people who are absolutely not interested. And, the other side of that is we have the ability to see people who have certain trends of behavior are likely going to switch from being high volume flower buyers to being concentrate buyers. So you can use the same data to avoid an experience as you can to create one, and cross-pollinate a customer and introduce them to side of the plant that they maybe not have seen before.
Yeah, I think my number one marketing mistake that I see the most consistently is believing that the status quo is how you have to go. That's, again, where we find ourselves in a race to the bottom scenario. Just because the other brand on the shelf is discounting their product and that's giving them a temporary boost in purchasing this month and it's hurting your volume, maybe that means that in the future they won't be able to sell that product for its full purchase price, and they're actually driving their ultimate customer loyalty and engagement over time down. So don't take anything for granted that you think is just sort of accepted knowledge of the industry. Really look at your data, really look at what your potential profit centers are in the business, and think about how you can get the maximum amount of value out of the smallest amount of building blocks and the smallest amount of cost that you put in. Because if you're operating with efficiency, you can scale that up, but you can't really scale your way spending into efficiency. You're inherently going to get less efficient the more you spend. That's just sort of how it goes. And if you can avoid a scenario where you're starting off inefficient, then you'll be a lot happier when you're scaling that across multiple locations or multiple events over the course of the year. So yeah, really just rely on the data. Folks that are just tossing money out there and hoping that something's going to come back, and not really looking hard at what's actually working for them, or trying new strategies that they may not have thought of, or that other brands aren't doing, or other retailers aren't doing. Really think about how you can be innovative and different in this type of period.
Yeah, I think a big marketing mistake I see in the industry and outside the industry is not thinking about how you're going to plan your campaigns and what are the channels that you're going to drive, but avoid a spray and pray approach, right? Because you want to get the most out of your marketing dollars. So really looking at your loyalty, right? Looking at your bud tender programs and what's being incentivized and how, and then building out your campaign using that data versus, again, like a spray and pray approach where you really don't know who you're targeting. You don't know if you're targeting them with dabs when they're really an edibles or flower person, right? So it's all about like looking at your data, working backwards, and then planning it out. So even looking at what you have from an events perspective, right? Aligning that around what channels am I going to leverage to drive different segments, new customers, existing loyal customers, right? Like how am I going to get those different segments to an event? So I think if you can avoid that, you're going to be in good shape.
That's awesome. Let's flip the script and say, what are some best marketing ideas or wins that you've seen? We're wrapping up time here, but would love to kind of hear some of the things that you've seen that have worked well. How about I start? I'll start. I've seen bundles in terms of like people coming through. They want to just see like, it's kind of like going in and out. You got your number 1, 2, 3. Hey, I want the number 1, which is a joint, a single serve edible, and a vape pen. Number 1, give me that, gone. I think that helps a lot to, especially some of the newer buyers or people that are like, want that quick. I just want to know I'm getting everything I need. The second tip is, with all the loyalty programs that we have and, the things that we go, you can create some pretty awesome prizes. Like you could say round trip to Hawaii if and give a raffle away. You could do, gift cards, gas cards, whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be, in the
Tickets to
realm
a
of a
concert.
cannabis. Exactly. AMC, whatever it is. I think there's something to be said about cannabis accentuates other experiences. So bringing those experiences right in front of them to be able to marry that. So here in San Francisco, we have like the Golden Gate 420 Hippie Hill. It's like, here's your thing, go there, hang out, and like have a good time.
No, totally. We always encourage kind of a variety of very unique approaches. I mean, like I said, there's so many levers to pull, and you have to pick the ones that kind of fit your brand image and voice. Doing things like educational messages, what we call product spotlights. So putting one product or one cultivator or producer in a spotlight, setting them aside, showing what makes them different. Alpine has solutions for both brands and retailers that allow collaborative campaigns. So someone like Maggie's Farm in 1906 can work together to build a campaign that has both of kind of their direction and voice included. So those are all really, really clever things that we're seeing evolve as the tree matures. So product spotlights, hugely, I remember trying my first 710 Labs concentrates after getting one of those product spotlight messages, had this like beautiful purple dab image. And I was like, I have never seen concentrates that purple before. And I immediately went to one of my local stores here, Lova, and picked it up. So those types of product spotlights help avoid that race to the bottom and kind of cut through the noise. And then speaking of cutting through the noise, I would say campaigns go out and having incentive programs and all of those things in store, being in the palm of the customer's hand throughout this next month, I think is so important. Regardless of sending a text or an email, if you have an app that lives and breathes the retailer's name in their hand, they're going to be thinking about, well, I wonder what deals are coming up. And you can publish those long ahead of time, get people excited today for something they know is coming up here in the future. And those top 20% spenders that you're going to have over the month of April, they're already thinking about it. They're already thinking about what their 420 plans are and who they're going to do it with, where they're going to be. And so being in the palm of their hand now helps you own the customer, helps you own that experience from the very inception all the way through that post-celebration employee holiday that Hua was talking about.
Yeah, I think the interesting pieces for marketing really hinge on, and Hua, I think you brought this up earlier, is combining local, right? Going local, having local artists, having local, and then allowing brands, and I've seen this a lot more recently, allowing brands to come and showcase what their brand identity is, right? And having the ability to consume on site. I think that's really interesting, and they are fun. But you see how different consumers connect with certain brands because they're able to see what is this brand from an experiential perspective. How do I connect with that brand, right? But it is going very local.
Yeah, I think some of the best marketing activations I've seen have been oriented around going to the places that people are not receiving messaging, really finding the people who are not being served by the industry today and identifying how you can bring them into the fold as a customer for your retailer and ultimately for your sort of dispensary brand. And there are lots of different ways to do that. That can be a community-oriented outreach, targeting folks maybe that are in a different area, but one that isn't serviced by a dispensary near them, trying to do some form of community cleanup in that space and saying, hey, we aren't necessarily a part of your community super proximally, but we're going to come in here and demonstrate that we care about your community too. Trying to find ways to connect with people where they are and service people who are underserved rather than going where it's really crowded and where everybody else is trying to put themselves. And, thinking about your marketing spend, I guess, contrary to everything that we've been saying on this call, not necessarily in terms of ROI or in terms of ROAS, but instead of, thinking about how you are making people feel and how you're impacting a community and how you're ultimately sticking out in people's minds because you're doing something that's different. And I think that can ideally put a little bit more of the spirit of the holiday into it rather than thinking exclusively about, what are we spending and how many people we're getting through the door. It's hey, we're in a pretty awesome industry and we get to sell a really awesome product, and we should give back to the communities that work with us to make that product a reality.
Solid. I love that. These are all great tips. One last shout out. Today is Women's Day. And I want to just do a nice thank you to all the women, especially in cannabis, especially because the plant is female. We need that energy so much in what we do here. And we super appreciate all the women out there really moving this forward. It's such an honor for all of that. I'll switch it back over to Aria. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hua, for that shout out.
Yeah, woman, you're the best.
Thanks to Alex, Andrew, West, and Hua for this webinar. You all shared a lot of great actionable insights here. And with 420 approaching, now is a great time to ensure that all of your sales channels are set up and ready to delight customers. Just wanted to share this quick offer. If you are using another system and you're interested in upgrading to Meadow before 420, we are offering a free kiosk for anyone who joins us before then. It's super easy to turn an iPad into a standalone station, and that can empower your customers to order delivery or pickup from your lobby or a special event. So when an order gets placed, a ticket gets printed in your inventory room so your team knows that it's ready to go, and they'll place it in the express pickup line for a quick transaction. And as a follow-up for today's webinar, we will send you a recording of the conversation as well as our 420 guidebook. So thank you all again so much for being here. Thanks for joining, and we will see you again real soon. Be well, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.